Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Rocket Chiro Podcast, the business and marketing podcast for chiropractors. We're going to talk today about struggling after being in practice for 10 or 15 years. There's a lot of chiropractors out there who are surviving. They've managed to survive for perhaps 10 years or more, but yet they're still not where they would like to be. And I talk a lot about new chiropractors and chiropractors who are just getting started on this podcast. But when I was talking to one of my website clients the other day, and he made the comment to me that he felt like I may be selling my content, my next step program, like the stuff that I do from a podcast and coaching standpoint. He said he felt like I might be selling that stuff a little bit short because he had been out in practice for, at this point, it's been longer than 15 years. And he found myself to be very helpful. He's, checked out my next step program. He's one of my website client. He listens to my podcast all the time. So we talked about that a little bit. And I thought, what I want to do is actually talk about that on the podcast in terms of just that particular person, why those struggles exist. And I think that this will serve two purposes. One is that it can give some advice to people that are in that situation. And also it could serve as a cautionary tale for those of you who are getting started and who are in the beginning phases, that first, 3, 4, 5 years of practice, to make sure that you don't be too complacent about where you are in practice and make some assumptions about what's going to happen in practice. Because if you go about this thing of building a practice and being a chiropractor and owning your own practice and all of that stuff, if you go about it and with wrong assumptions, you can often end up in a place where you don't want to be. And time just keeps going. Whether you like it or not, time keeps going. I know it doesn't seem like it's been that long since I've been out of chiropractic college, but it's been 20 years at this point. That is mind-boggling to think about, that there's some people in chiropractic college now that probably either weren't born yet or had just been born when I graduated. That makes me feel very, very old. And you know what? That's going to be you someday. It just is. You're going to have this, you're going to get old. And when you get there, you want to be where you want to be. Like that's the thing. You don't want to just let life happen. So before I get into that, I do want to say a couple things. One, if you want a better website, go to rocketchiro.com and check out my websites. If you want help with search engine optimization or with Google Ads, it's something we just added recently, is a Google Ads service. If you are interested in having Google Ads done, especially if you're someone who is on a little bit of a tighter budget, if you have a budget of $500 to $1,000 a month total, like that's including management fees and all of that stuff. But if you have $500 to $1,000 in total, you are in the range of what we can do to get you some Google Ads and get you some benefit from it. We don't have super high requirements or super high management fees or anything of that nature. We are doing it hopefully in a way that's very affordable for most chiropractors, as well as those of you, if you have a bigger budget and you just want to work with us instead of the company you have been working with, I'll be happy to take you on those that have bigger budgets as well. So you can go to Rocket Chiro. You can request more information, reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you with websites, SEO, or with your Google Ads. All right. So a lot of chiropractors that have been out for a while, let's say 10, 15 years, they're still struggling. And what I mean by struggling is this. What I mean by struggling is you still have ups and downs that are the difference between you covering your bills for the month and not covering your bills for the month. Now, I'm not saying that all of your months are like you're underwater, but if you're having where it's not terribly infrequent or not terribly uncommon in your practice, for you to have a month or two throughout the year where you're not covering your bills, and really when you are covering your bills, you're just barely doing it, I would put that in the category of struggling, unless you just have to have a massive spending problem. Now, if you have a massive spending problem, that's not solved by more money. You have to figure out budgeting and you have to figure out spending. But let's assume you don't have a massive spending problem. The thing you do have to know, and you have to understand, that whether you're a successful chiropractor or not, you're going to experience ups and downs in your practice. And this is normal. The difference between a successful practice and a practice that's struggling is the ups and downs that a successful practice experiences isn't the difference between them covering their overhead and not covering their overhead. It's not the difference between like, am I going to make it or am I not going to make it? Like, that's not what's happening. That those fluctuations are happening above what that chiropractor needs to survive and to do well. A struggling chiropractor, those fluctuations continue to happen around the point where you need it. So let's say you need $10,000 to cover your expenses for the month. And then one month you make 9, and one month you make 12, and the next month you make, 8, and then you make 15, and then you make 10, and then you make 11, and then you make 8. Like, that's what I'm talking about. A successful chiropractor, if let's say you need $10,000 a month to kind of cover where you need to be, a successful chiropractor might have 15 in one month and 17 the next and 20 the next and 13 the next and 16 the next, but none of those have ever dropped below what they need. So that to me is an indication, and obviously you're the only one that's going to know how much money you need, whether you have a spending problem or not. You're the only one that's going to know that. But the reality is if you are fluctuating up and down around what the number that you need, you still have not gotten to the point where you should be. The other indication would just be that I got two more little indications of struggling chiropractors, even if you've been out for a while. Number one would be that you just sort of feel a little stressed and overwhelmed with the business. You've just never really felt quite competent. And I think that this is true life in general. When a person attempts to do something that they're not very good at, maybe you get a job that you're not qualified for, maybe you commit to something that you are in over your head, there's an anxiety that comes along with that. Now, once you become competent at something, once you get comfortable with it, once you get like it becomes your normal, that anxiety goes away. So if you're still in practice and there's this low grade anxiety that just constantly exists, you've been out for 10 or 15 years and there's still this anxiety about owning your business, the systems, what are you going to do? What if it falls apart? Maybe it's unstable. I'm not sure what I'm doing. I don't know what the method to the madness is. That's a pretty good indication that you're not where you should be. The last thing I would say is this about struggling chiropractors. Struggling chiropractors tend to be stuck in a pattern of constantly trying to hit home runs. And it doesn't matter if you've been out for just a couple months or you've been out for 10 or 15 years. If you are someone that is constantly looking for a marketing home run, you are constantly looking for like the next big thing. You are constantly taking big swings at stuff and overlooking the foundational stuff, the stuff that's not sexy but is important, systems, things of that nature. If you're constantly overlooking that and looking for like the next great big thing, and you're quick to leave things that are not home runs, you're quick to jump to something else that might be a home run, you get suckered into these things that people will tell you like, oh, you can get an extra 40 new patients a month without doing anything. Like if you're constantly chasing that and chasing the high, that's also a pretty good indication that you're not as successful as you should be, and you're not running your practice the way that you should be, and that you're still kind of in a struggling state. Now, I think one of the lies that we tell ourselves as chiropractors, and this happens a lot when you've been out for a while, and if this is you, you've probably told yourself, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, that it'll eventually get better. And this is the mistake that you can make when you're first starting out, is just making the assumption that time in and of itself is going to be the thing that's going to help you. Like, oh well, if I could just make it past the 2-year mark, or just make it past the 5-year mark, or just make it past the 10-year mark, then it'll be okay. Time in and of itself is not anything other than just time. And what should be happening is you should be changing your habits, and you should be developing new systems, and you should be implementing new things, and you should be growing and learning with that time. If that's taking place, then time is your friend. If it's not taking place, time for the sake of time doesn't do anything except for make you older. Like that's all that it does. And so if you're assuming, and if you have ever assumed that, man, I'll just get better with time, and there's no sort of strategy to grow, that's a mistake. One of the things that I say to my clients all the time, and you've heard me say this on the podcast before if you listen to this podcast, is that the future you, the one who is more successful, the one who is the version of you who you want to become, that future you knows things that you don't currently know and has habits that you don't currently have. And you could grow into that person by learning things that you don't currently know, and by applying those things and developing habits that you don't currently have. Like that absolutely can happen over time. But if you just assume that time in and of itself is going to be the thing that you need in order to be successful, you may very well wake up 10 years out of school, 15 years out of school, 20 years out of school. And if you have an honest look in the mirror, you see this, that you have not become the person that you want to become. You have not became that future you because you don't know anything more than what you knew 10 years ago. And you don't have better habits than you did 10 years ago. That's a waste. It's a huge waste. Now, I'll tell you where the struggle is. And this is what I told my client when he told me, he says, maybe you're selling yourself a little bit short. And I immediately told him, I said, the problem with chiropractors who have been out for 10 or 15 years, it's hard to get them to a point where they're honest about their situation. And many of them feel entitled because of time. So it's sort of like this, what I've already alluded to, where you think like, well, if enough time passes, then I'll figure it out. The other thing that sort of comes along with that is when someone comes to me and talks to me and they've been in practice for 15 years, they've been in practice for 20 years, and they're a hot mess. I know darn well that they have overlooked many of the fundamentals that I teach to my new docs. You can't build a successful practice on a shaky foundation. And if you're going to be honest with yourself, if you're in that situation, the best thing you can do, and this is the old Chinese proverb, right? I don't know if there's any new Chinese proverbs, but it's like the old Chinese proverb that says, the best day to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best day to plant a tree is today. And this is true for improving your situation. If you've been 10, 15 years out into practice and you're still not where you want to be, the best thing for you to do was to start 10 years ago. But you can't do that. You can't fix that. You can start today. And if you're not honest about the fact that you don't know things that you need to know and you don't have habits that you need to have, you start to feel entitled because of the time. Oh, I've been out in practice for 10 years. I shouldn't have to learn that. I've been out in practice for 15 years. And the problem I have a lot of times with doctors like that is they don't want to take advice. They're too darn proud. They're too proud to go back to the basics and shore up their foundation so they can build the practice they want to. And this sort of goes back to what I said before too, is because learning the basics and shoring up your foundation is the complete opposite of trying to hit home runs. When a doc that's been out for 15 years gets a hold of me and wants help, more often than not, they're looking for a home run. And I would say a lot of those clients aren't my clients, not because I can't help them, but they're not my clients because I don't lie to people. I don't tell people that SEO is going to work faster than what it is. I don't tell people that getting a website with me is going to change stuff that it's not going to change. I don't tell people that the Google Ads program we have, it's like, oh, you're putting $500 a month into this. Like, oh, that should get you 60 new patients a month. No, it's not. That's not enough money. I would never tell you that. Now, there's some people that will. I've said over and over again in private to friends and family of mine, I would make more money if I was a liar. Now, that may or may not be true, but I know that there are people out there that will lie to chiropractors about their website and what they are and aren't doing and what they can and can't do and how much it will and won't help them. I don't do that. I'll tell you the truth. I know there's people out there that'll lie about search engine optimization. I know there's people out there that'll lie about Google ads, Instagram ads, and everything else because they're just trying to make a sale. I've been the chiropractor who was taken advantage of, and that's why I refuse to do it. I refuse to lie and take advantage of chiropractors because someone did that to me a long time ago, and I refuse to be that person. I don't need the money that bad. And so if you're a chiropractor who is struggling and it's been 10 years or 15 years, I don't freaking care. You're actually struggling for the same reason that someone is that's been out for 3 or 4 years and still struggling. You got bad habits. There's things you don't know that you need to know. You got to go back to the basics. You got to shore up your foundation. And feeling entitled doesn't help. It just doesn't. You have to humble yourself and just be honest with the fact that maybe you should have done this a long time ago. But you know what? You can't do anything about that. You could do something about it today. And if you start doing the right things now, a year from now, you're going to be in a better spot. 2 years from now, you're going to be in a better spot. It really is as simple as that. So what do? Well, Next Step is an option. I always talk about Next Step on here. I have a membership program that gives you access to a bunch of in-depth trainings. Really, really good stuff for getting started. It's great for chiropractors who are getting started. It's great for chiropractors who are just getting out of school. And it's great for chiropractors that have been out for 10 or 15 years and have no idea what they're doing. It's an incredible program. It's very affordable. Does it cover everything? No, not at all. Not even close. Do I know everything? No, not at all. I still have my own struggles in life. I still have my own struggles in business. I am not an expert on all things. I do know how to help people get started. And I do know how to introduce concepts to them and things to them that they've never thought about before, and things that are crucially important to their success. I do that. And that's what Next Step is for. And you get access to me. So if you go through some of the trainings or you have a question, you can email me, you can text me, you can ask me for help, and I'll help you however I can. And if I can't help you, I'll tell you I can't help you. And if I can find somebody else to help you, I'll try to find somebody else to help you. I'll be your advocate. I'm an advocate for my Next Step members as much as they need me to be. So Next Step is an option. Are there other options? Yeah. There's other podcasts you can listen to. There's other programs that you can do. Some are affordable, some are not less affordable, but pick something, stick with it, learn new things, develop new habits. That's how you're going to get out of this hole. And being entitled, trying to go back in time, getting upset, like, fighting the wind, whatever it is that you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, there's a bunch of pointless things that you can do. Or you can start setting aside time to learn new things, and you can start setting aside time to develop new habits. And you can start becoming the chiropractor that maybe you should have been 5 years ago, or maybe you should have been 10 years ago. It really is that simple. All right, guys, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for sharing. If you know a chiropractor who needs some help or is in the growth phase of things, please share the podcast with them. I also have that 10 podcast series I just recently did about how to start your practice. Super helpful for people that are getting started. If you want help with your website, I'd love to help you with the website. If you want help with SEO and with Google Ads, I can help you with that as well. I'm looking for more clients. I would love to find more chiropractors to help and work with. I am also in a growth phase in Rocket Chiro, so I would love to pick up some more people if that's something I could help you with. I'm done. I'm out of here. I will talk to you guys later. See ya.